The auditorium lights were brighter than I remembered. They washed the whole room in a soft gold glow that made every seat look warm and inviting. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept rubbing my palms together, hoping no one noticed how nervous I was. Today was Emily's day, not mine. My only job was simple: smile, stay calm, and keep the peace. Emily worked so hard for this moment. Late nights, group projects, weekend shifts at the campus library. She earned every bit of that blue cap and gown. All week she kept saying, "Mom, please, just sit next to Dad. I don't want drama today." And I promised her I would. So I did exactly that. I sat on the left side of Mark, leaving Emily's younger brother Daniel on my right. I even made sure my face looked relaxed so no one could guess the truth, that I already knew something was wrong with my husband. I had known for months. The late nights at the office, the sudden need for privacy, the expensive new clothes he claimed were on sale. I wasn't stupid. I just didn't want to ruin Emily's graduation. As the ceremony went on, people laughed, clapped, took pictures, whispered to each other. Parents were tearing up. Students were hugging friends. It felt like a bubble of joy when I was willing to stay inside no matter how hard things were at home. Then Mark stood up. At first, I thought maybe he was stretching his legs or waving at someone he knew. But no. He took 2 slow steps forward until he was blocking part of the aisle. He didn't look at the stage. He didn't look at Emily. He looked straight at me. Something inside my chest tightened. His voice came out louder than I'd ever heard it. "I've decided to start a new life without you." Every sound in the auditorium stopped. The clapping, the whispers. Even the air felt frozen. A woman in the row ahead of us turned around, eyes wide. I heard a kid somewhere whisper, "Oh my God." Someone dropped their program and the paper slapped against the floor like a gunshot. I didn't look at Mark, not yet. I followed the direction of a few whispers and saw her. A woman with perfectly curled brown hair. A fitted black dress. Red lipstick that didn't suit the daytime lighting at all. She was sitting comfortably with a small group of our friends, smiling nervously like she wasn't sure whether to wave at me or hide under her seat. His girlfriend. Not just hiding in the shadows. Not waiting outside. She was sitting with the same people who had eaten at our table, celebrated Emily's birthday, and stood with us at Christmas. One of them even had the nerve to put a hand on her shoulder like she was the one who needed comfort. My heart should have broken. But instead, a strange calm washed over me. Not relief. Not anger. Something colder. Something quiet and final. Everyone was watching me, waiting for a breakdown. They expected the trembling hands, the cracking voice, maybe even a dramatic exit. But not today. I stood up slowly, smoothed the front of my dress, and met Mark's eyes. "Congratulations on your honesty, Mark," I said, keeping my voice steady and warm. A couple of people gasped again. Someone muttered, "She's taking this really well," like I wasn't standing right there. But I wasn't thinking about them. I wasn't thinking about him. I was thinking about Emily on that stage, trying to scan the audience to find her family. She deserved better than a scene. She deserved better than 2 selfish parents pulling her graduation apart. I reached into my purse and felt the white envelope between my fingers. For weeks I had debated what to do with it. Whether to confront him privately or wait for the right moment. But when he chose today, her graduation day, he made the choice for me. I pulled the envelope out and held it toward him. "Before you walk away from this family," I said, "you should probably read this." He snatched it from my hand like a child grabbing a forbidden toy. He tore it open with so much force that a corner ripped off and dropped to the floor. He unfolded the papers inside. 10 seconds later, it happened. His face drained of color. His jaw clenched. His hands started shaking so hard the paper almost slipped from his fingers. Then came the scream. A raw, angry sound, loud enough to echo off the auditorium walls. Heads turned. People whispered. A few parents covered their children's ears. One of the teachers on stage stepped toward the mic, unsure whether to intervene. "Where did you get this?" he shouted, voice cracking with panic. But I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He looked back at the envelope like it was a bomb that had just gone off in his hands. Our friends leaned in, trying to peek at the documents. His girlfriend stood up with a confused expression, clutching her purse like she might run. Mark stumbled a step toward me. "How long have you known?" I smiled again, softer this time. "Long enough." He knew what was in those papers. Every secret bank transfer. Every hidden message. Every credit card bill addressed to a rental apartment under his name. And the final page, the one that made him scream, was the notice from my attorney. A divorce already filed. Asset freeze requested. Spousal support outlined. And best of all, proof of his affair attached as evidence. He thought he blindsided me. He thought he humiliated me. He thought I'd come undone in front of everyone. But he was the one standing there, falling apart. Daniel looked between us, confused and angry. Our friends stared at the floor, suddenly unable to look at either of us. And the girlfriend? She quietly sat back down, shrinking into her seat. For the first time in months, I took a full breath. It felt like freedom. The ceremony staff approached, trying to figure out if security was needed. Mark was still shouting, still shaking, still trying to piece together how everything slipped out of his control. But I didn't stay to watch. I walked out of the auditorium with my head high. Outside, under the shade of a tall oak tree, I waited for the moment Emily would come running out with her diploma, searching for her mom. Because this day was still hers. And now, nothing and no one would ruin it. For a long time, I kept telling myself I was imagining things. People drift, marriages go through phases, and stress makes everyone behave a little strange. That's what I wanted to believe. It was easier than admitting that something inside our home was shifting in a way I couldn't control. But the signs were too obvious to ignore. Mark was always working late. Not once or twice. I'm talking 4 or 5 nights a week. He used to call me on his way home, but that stopped. He started keeping his phone face down on the nightstand. He'd take it with him even if he was just walking to the mailbox. And every time it pinged, he'd tense up like he was waiting for an explosion. When I'd ask simple questions, "How was work? Everything okay?" He'd snap. Like I was accusing him of something. Like I was supposed to stop asking why my own husband was drifting away from me. I noticed it most during dinner. Emily and I would talk about her college applications, her plans, her stress, her excitement. But Mark? He wasn't even at the table half the time. He was at the office, sending vague texts about a deadline. The man who used to brag about Emily's grades now didn't even ask how her day was. Still, I didn't confront him. Not because I was scared of the truth. Because I didn't want to crush Emily while she was trying to figure out her future. Then one afternoon, exactly 2 weeks before graduation, everything snapped into place. Mark's navy suit jacket hung on the back of our dining chair. It was unusual. He never left his work clothes lying around. I wasn't trying to snoop. I was just moving it so I could clean. But when I lifted it, I heard a small crinkle in the pocket. A folded hotel receipt. I thought it would be from one of his work trips. No big deal. But when I opened it, my stomach dropped so fast I felt dizzy. One night. King Suite. Booked for 2. His full name printed clearly. And the city? 3 hours away, a place he had no reason to visit. I read it twice. Then again. I stood there in the quiet dining room, my hands shaking so hard the paper rattled. I kept hoping I was misunderstanding it. But the truth stared back at me in black ink. It wasn't just that he went to a hotel. It was that he took someone with him. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. I wanted to cry until I collapsed. But I didn't do any of that. Not a single tear. Instead, I sat down at the table and breathed slowly until my heartbeat settled. And that's when I saw the name on his credit card charge. Lauren. Not a stranger. Not some unknown woman from a dating app. Lauren, someone we actually knew. Someone who had been inside our home, smiling, laughing, eating burgers at our summer barbecues. She even held Emily when she sprained her wrist last year. And all that time, she was sleeping with my husband. I didn't confront him that night. I didn't say anything the next morning. There was no fight, no dramatic accusation, no tears. Just a quiet decision inside me. I need a plan, not a reaction. Because Mark had spent months building lies. And I was about to spend months building truth. So that's what I did. Slowly. Quietly. Carefully. I checked our phone records, not illegal, just the shared family account. The number of calls and texts between Mark and Lauren could have filled a small novel. Midnight calls. Lunchtime calls. Calls during moments he told me he was in a meeting. Then I dug through bank statements. Hotel charges. Gas receipts from towns he never told me he visited. Restaurant tabs for two. One time he even bought her flowers using our joint debit card. I took screenshots of everything. Every message, every hint, every timestamp. Then I found the part that made my blood boil. He used our shared credit card to send her money. Not a lot at once, but enough that it added up. Little transfers labeled gift, thank you, lunch, clothes. He was financing his affair with the same account I used to buy groceries. I saved all of it. And when I had enough proof to fill a folder, I did something Mark never expected. I called someone who had always been in Emily's life, her godfather, Daniel. People saw him as a close family friend, but he also happened to be one of the sharpest divorce attorneys in our state. When I showed him everything, he didn't ask me if I was sure. He didn't tell me to calm down. He didn't lecture me about saving the marriage. He looked at the stack of evidence and said one thing that changed everything. Don't confront him yet. Let him think he's in control. People like him make mistakes when they feel safe. So I listened. I smiled through dinners. I nodded when he invented excuses. I watched him leave the house with his work bag, knowing he wasn't going anywhere near the office. Every time he thought he was being clever, he was actually giving me more leverage. And while he was planning hotel nights and secret trips, I was meeting with lawyers, preparing documents, securing my finances, and planning the exact moment everything would fall apart for him. And that moment, the one Daniel told me to wait for, arrived on graduation day. A day Mark thought was about him taking control of the narrative. A day he believed he could embarrass me, humiliate me, and walk away looking like the victim in front of our friends. He had no idea that the envelope in my purse held months of his lies. He had no idea that I already filed for divorce. He had no idea that Lauren was about to face consequences too. He had no idea that by the time he opened that envelope, his entire life, his job, his reputation, his bank accounts, would crash down around him. He thought graduation day was his moment to break me. But it was the day he realized he never had the power he thought he did. The day he screamed was the day I finally breathed. Mark thought he owned the moment. Standing on that stage, under the bright lights, he acted like he was delivering some kind of victory speech. The way he lifted his chin, the way he pretended to be calm, the way he made sure every pair of eyes in the auditorium was on him, it was the confidence of a man who believed he'd already won. But he had no idea that the game ended long before he even got up there. When he announced, loud and proud, "I've decided to start a new life without you," the room went dead silent. I could feel hundreds of eyes sliding toward me, waiting for the sound of something breaking. Maybe my voice. Maybe my heart. Maybe my pride. But nothing broke. Not that day. Because while he was celebrating his dramatic exit, he didn't know he was stepping directly into his own downfall. I reached into my purse and handed him the white envelope. He ripped it open immediately, probably expecting some emotional letter, or maybe a plea, or maybe even nothing at all. Mark always assumed I was too soft, too forgiving, too patient to ever push back. But today, he wasn't facing the woman he used to walk over. Today, he was facing the woman he underestimated for too long. Inside the envelope were the last pages of a story he didn't know was being written. The first document was simple. Signed divorce papers. Already processed. Already approved. Already waiting for his signature, though at that point, his signature didn't matter much. For weeks, Daniel, Emily's godfather and a sharp, methodical divorce attorney, helped me collect every piece of evidence we needed. And while Mark thought he was sneaking around, he was leaving a trail that even a child could follow. Receipts, texts, call logs, cheap hotel bookings paid with our shared funds, it was all there. The judge reviewed everything days before graduation. And the judge did not take kindly to a man who had been draining joint money to fund an affair with a woman who once sat at my dinner table eating my cooking. So the court had already approved. 1. Immediate separation. Which meant no pretending, no negotiations, no counseling. We were legally separated the moment he opened that envelope. 2. Temporary sole control of the house to me. While Mark had been practicing his breakup speech, I had already changed the locks. The court order was signed that morning. 3. Frozen accounts until division. Every joint account we shared, savings, checking, investments, was locked down. Not a single cent could be touched without court approval. Mark didn't know any of this. He thought he still had access. He thought he could blow up our marriage and walk out with his pockets full. But when he saw the financial freeze, his smirk twitched. Just for a moment. That was the first crack. Then he turned to the next page. There, attached with a staple, was a complete breakdown of every dollar he spent on Lauren. The hotel stays. The jewelry. The dinners. The weekends with the guys that were actually road trips with her. He scanned faster and faster, like he was searching for a mistake, something to deny, something to attack. But the more he read, the more his face tightened. The audience didn't know what he was holding, but they could feel the tension shift. Then he reached the part that mentioned Lauren by name. And that was when he looked at her. Right there, sitting with our friends, pretending to be invisible. Her face dropped first. Because she knew. She knew what was coming before he did. But even that wasn't what made him scream. What made him scream was the last document. The one printed on pink legal paper. That page held the true downfall. Proof of financial fraud he committed with our savings account. Not relationship drama. Not emotional betrayal. Not moral failure. A felony. Mark had transferred funds without my consent, rerouted payments, and altered digital records. He thought he was being clever. But every clever move he made was a crime. And every crime he committed was logged by the bank system and backed up on my attorney's flash drive. I didn't just have evidence. I had timestamps, screenshots, IP logs, bank statements, notifications he tried to delete, security emails he never knew were forwarded to me. And the final blow? Lauren encouraged it. The messages were right there. Just move the money. She'll never notice. Do it from the savings account. She's too soft to push back. That single sentence, just move the money, was enough to put both of them under investigation. When he realized what the document meant. When he understood that the court had already flagged his actions. When he recognized that this wasn't just divorce. It was exposure. That was the moment he screamed. Not a loud scream. Not a manly burst of anger. It was a raw, panicked, cracking sound, the kind people make when the ground under their feet suddenly gives way. He staggered backward, the papers shaking in his hands. "You set me up," he shouted, voice shaking. But I didn't flinch. Not after the months of lies. Not after the hotel receipts. Not after watching him look at Lauren the same way he used to look at me. I stepped closer, calm and steady. "No, Mark," I said. "You set yourself up. I just printed the receipts." The audience didn't move. Some people looked at me with shock. Some looked at him with judgment. Some looked at Lauren like she had dragged them into a movie they didn't want to be in. Emily, standing backstage, had tears in her eyes, not from sadness, but from relief. She finally understood why I had stayed calm. Why I never fought. Why I never yelled. Because the truth didn't need volume. It only needed timing. Mark stood there holding the pieces of his own destruction, and for the first time in years, he had nothing left to say. And that was how everything he tried to hide came crashing down right in front of the people he wanted to impress. Security didn't even wait for Mark to finish shouting. The moment his voice echoed through the hallway and guests began turning their heads, 2 guards stepped forward. They weren't aggressive, just firm, like men who had seen this kind of meltdown plenty of times before. One of them, a tall guy with a calm voice, said, "Sir, we need you to step outside." Mark kept yelling, waving the envelope in the air, acting like he was the victim of some grand betrayal. "She set me up. She planned this. She's trying to ruin my life." His voice cracked as he shouted, and for the first time since all of this started, I realized something that surprised me. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel guilty. I felt relieved. Because everyone could finally see the truth without me saying a single word. When the guards finally guided him out the doors, the entire auditorium buzzed with quiet whispers. Nobody clapped. Nobody tried to defend him. They watched him leave like they were watching a storm finally move out of town. But the shock didn't end with him. Lauren stood up from the row where she'd been pretending to blend in with our friends. She had her purse half-zipped and her head down like she thought she could slip out without drawing attention. But people noticed. Oh, they noticed. 2 women who had been friends with her for years pulled their kids a little closer. Someone muttered, "Wow, she really sat with us the whole time?" Another whispered, "I knew something was off. Who shows up at someone else's kid's graduation like that?" Nobody stopped her. But nobody looked at her the same way again. She kept her head down as she hurried out, but I could see the fear in her eyes. Not embarrassment. Fear. Because she didn't know what was in those documents. She didn't know her name was tied to fraud. She didn't know she was about to get a subpoena that would drag her into court under oath. She thought she was just dating a married man. She didn't realize she had stepped into a legal storm. As soon as she disappeared through the doors, I felt a small hand grab mine. Emily. But she wasn't crying. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't embarrassed. She wrapped her arms around me, pressing her face into my shoulder in a hug that felt like relief wrapped in love. And in a soft voice only I could hear, she said, "Mom, I'm proud of you." I almost broke right there. Not because of Mark, not because of the chaos, but because my daughter, the person this day was supposed to be about, understood. She had seen enough behind the scenes to know I wasn't trying to ruin anything. I was trying to protect what was left. I stroked her hair and whispered back, "This is still your day, sweetheart." And she smiled. A real smile. The following week felt like watching dominoes fall, one by one by one. Once the truth was out, everything moved quickly. First, the HR department at Mark's company reached out. They wanted to temporarily remove him from his department pending internal investigation. Corporate speak for, "You're in trouble." When you work in a field that handles finances, fraud isn't just a mistake. It's a career killer. Next, Lauren stopped returning his calls. I didn't hear this from Mark, he wasn't speaking to me, but from mutual acquaintances who suddenly didn't feel the need to protect him anymore. Apparently, she panicked after receiving notice from the court. She had no idea she could be questioned. She had no idea what she was connected to. She told one of her friends, "I didn't sign up for this." No, she signed up to date a married man. The rest came as a bonus she didn't expect. Meanwhile, I met with Daniel, the divorce attorney who had helped me set all of this in motion. His office felt warm and safe. Papers were filed. Court dates were scheduled. Temporary custody of the house and accounts was officially granted to me. Every single thing had moved in my favor. Not because I screamed. Not because I fought in public. Because I planned. The law works slowly for some people. But for people who document everything, it works fast. Underscore 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 underscore. A few days later, I sat on our back porch with a cup of coffee, listening to the wind move through the trees. The same yard where Mark used to grill on Sundays. The same porch where Lauren once laughed with us like she was family. Funny how places stay the same even when people don't. My phone buzzed with messages from friends. Some apologized for ever thinking Mark was the good one. Some admitted they suspected something was off. Others simply said they were there for me and Emily. The part that surprised me most was how calm I felt. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't second-guessing myself. I was free. Free from excuses. Free from pretending. Free from carrying a marriage that I had been keeping alive alone. And every time I replayed that moment in the auditorium, the shock on his face, the silence of the crowd, the way he screamed when he read the documents, I didn't feel guilt. I felt closure. Because he wanted a new life without me? Fine. He got exactly that. Just not the version he imagined. Instead of running away with a clean slate, he ran straight into consequences he created. Emily and I later went out for dinner to celebrate her graduation. She ordered a slice of cheesecake and said, "Mom, I feel lighter. Like the house isn't full of arguing anymore." And I realized something. Revenge isn't always about striking back. Sometimes revenge is simply letting the truth stand in the middle of a room and speak for itself. What I did wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It wasn't messy. It was controlled. Calm. Precise. Like handing someone an envelope at the exact moment their lives crumble. And that's why, when I walked out of that graduation hall with my daughter beside me, the sunlight felt warmer than it had in years. Not because everything was perfect, but because everything was finally honest. Because sometimes all it takes is the right envelope at the right moment. Thanks for staying with me till the end. If this story pulled you in, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next twist. Drop a like, leave a comment, and tell me what you would have done. This is Secret Twist Stories, and trust me, the next one is even wilder.